I'm a British Muslim of Pakistani origin. I grew up with these really strong anti-Semitic and anti-Israel ideas around me in the house and in the community, and eventually, when I got to university, I became a real activist, a real anti-Israel activist. Became very extreme and was in many ways, on the way to becoming an actual terrorist. And then I came across this book, The Case for Israel, and I thought, okay, look, this is ridiculous, this is propaganda, Israel's evil, Israel's genocidal, the Israelis are Nazis. So I started reading it just to disprove it, because a lot of the kind of activism was about your own ego, trying to make yourself feel better. So I started reading it, and all these arguments I came across I'd never heard of before. The idea of a Jewish presence in the Holy Land for all these years, for this idea of Israel being a democracy and all these things. So I thought, okay, this I can disprove quite easily. So when I started researching, I thought it'd be a few weeks. It almost took a year and a half, and I got to this point where I was still not willing to completely let go of my preconceived beliefs, and that's when I decided to go to Israel. The whole time I always said I was pro-Palestinian. I was involved with the pro-Palestinian groups. But when you look back, we actually did nothing to help the Palestinians. We didn't care about their human rights. We didn't care about their right to a better education. We didn't care about the aspirations of Palestinian children. All we cared about was demonizing, vilifying Israel. So it was all well and good as adding this kind of freedom for Palestine to our name and on our stickers, but all our actions were contrary. All they were about demonizing Israel. And that's why when I talk about these things, I always say it's an anti-Israel movement, not a pro-Palestinian movement. Because for me, it's not a zero-sum game. Because I support Israel, it doesn't mean I hate the Palestinians. I support the Palestinians. Their right to freedom, their right to exist as sovereign people, to have a right to a better education, and a right for Palestinian children to grow up with aspirations to be doctors and teachers. It's not a zero-sum game. But when I was anti-Israel, that's all I was. I said I was pro-Palestinian, but actions speak louder than words. At the end of the day, the decisions made there really don't affect me. That makes sense. If territory is engaged, if terrorism happens, if airstrikes happen, I'm sitting at home. It doesn't affect me. But what bothers me is that in campuses in the US, in Europe, we've got people talking about boycotts and divestment. They're talking about all these events that all they do is bring hostility and hatred from the Middle East into North America. If we can't sit down and talk here, what hope is there possibly in the Middle East when they've got such a fractured history? So I think dialogue has to be the way forward, and treating people as human beings and willing to look at the other side of the story. You don't have to agree with what I say, but look at the other side of the story. As a Muslim, I'm frequently having to challenge this notion that all Muslims are terrorists and extremists. So maybe a lot of Muslims need to do the same thing and look at Israel in that other light. We keep saying it's an apartheid and genocidal state. Maybe we should be fair as we expect to be treated and treat others the same way.